from a sci-fi novel that I'm working on about very strange events that began to occur to a young girl in Brooklyn on one summer afternoon. So here I go. The essence of summertime couldn't have been more palpable in Brooklyn. People were out and about in the Fulton Mall and every store seemed crowded. There were adults carrying crying children and vendors on the sidewalk selling cell phone cases, jewelry, chargers, scarves, hats, and even handmade sandals. To me, though, their tables were just rectangles with colorful shapes being sifted through by ladies with false nails. I sweat really easily and could already feel my underarms starting to perspire. But I had endured 6 weeks of summer school, and now that it was over, I was going to treat myself to a walk across the Brooklyn Bridge. But it's a shame I never made it across. Just as I found the entrance to the bridge, something rammed right into me. It was some wannabe loser all decked out in dry-fit clothes who had jogged by and totally bumped into me. I could hear him ranting about kids always being in the way and my kind always touching things that's not theirs. Needless to say, this was a middle-aged white man who probably didn't get any action at home, which is why he had to jog to get some form of physical relief. However, instead of saying that out loud, I just kept quiet. You see, my kind and I have found that there are 2 ways to handle this kind of situation. You could A, be loud, curse them off, and essentially prove everything they think they know about you, or you could B, get over it and know that you're the better person for not even reacting. Whatever. I walked to the midsection of the bridge, leaned over the edge, and watched the waves lap against the giant columns that held it up. I admired the skyline from where I stood and blinked as the sun reflected off the buildings that, to me, always seemed to be made out of pure silver. It never ceased to amaze me how no matter where in the city I was, I always seemed to be able to see the Empire State Building. I didn't know what they did in there, but it was a pretty building. I inhaled the crisp air and listened to the water, my mood mellowing substantially. Then I got an idea. I could usually only do this at night in a dark room where there was very little light, but I figured I would try anyway. I focused my eyes on a single point of light, in this case, the tip of the Empire State. I willed myself not to blink or avert my gaze. Somehow this allowed me to focus on everything within a 180-degree view without actually focusing on anything. And then it finally happened. All the panels on the buildings that were reflecting light turned black, and everything seemed to take on a metallic property. The glass, the clouds, even the stone bridge. I tried not to lower my eye, but I let myself know that without actually thinking the words, if I were to let myself lower my gaze, then the people in my view and their movement would break my focus. I got a bit dizzy, but I continued to gaze at everything and nothing, and soon enough, all matter froze, while the colors within them shifted in and out. It was like looking through a kaleidoscope. My eyes were starting to get tired, but I couldn't break my focus. I began to feel a pressure on my shoulder and hear a muffled sound behind me. It was definitely time to close my eyes, but I can't. There was more muffled noise behind me and even heavier pressure on my arm. This time I forced my eyes closed and focused on holding onto the side of the bridge. Before I could open my eyes again, there was that same pressure on my arm. Dizziness came rushing back, and with it, that nauseous feeling you get when you're on the roller coaster for 30 seconds longer than you could stand. I felt warm and cold at the same time, and I felt an obnoxious heat beating down on me that had nothing to do with the sun. At the same time, my bones were starting to ache. I was shivering, my teeth were chattering, and I was getting dizzier by the second. Then the bridge began to resonate beneath me, and I felt the walkway turning on its side. I felt myself slipping. I dropped to my feet and tried to hold on. I didn't dare open my eyes. I was too scared. My ears were popping, so I couldn't even hear anything. I couldn't say anything, and I could barely think. The muffled noise got more intense, as did the pressure on my shoulder. I flung open my eyes, and it all happened rather quickly after that. The bright light that reflected off the panels of the buildings were blinding me, and with the beating of the helicopters up above and the racing of the cars down below, I just couldn't take it anymore. I was forced to close my eyes again, and as I folded in on myself, I retched. I blew chunks all over the bridge. At once, all my senses came back to me, sight, sound, and smell. I could hear people gasping around me, and then a terrible odor, one that I realized to be my own vomit. I didn't have the energy or the will to hold myself up. I opened my eyes for half a second to see the ledge of the bridge, and then my view was obscured by something bright white. And only then, after all of that, did I finally faint. The end.